Congratulations, you have completed the History and Philosophy of Science in 6 easy steps. I'm not sure if you considered them easy, but I hope that you found them enlightening, at least a little bit challenging, and that you benefited from that. I just want to do a little bit of review of week 6. I want to kind of sum up the course, wrap things up, and then talk a little bit about grades and that sort of thing. So first of all, with respect to Ray Kurzweil and his singularity hypothesis, and that's really what it is, it's a hypothesis. I know that some of you had some concerns, maybe some ethical concerns, for example, that you expressed in your responses on the forum, and also some doubts about what he said. I just want to say this, that this is really not about what his motivations might be, that he wants to bring his father back from the dead, that sort of thing, that he wants to live forever. Really, when it comes down to it, the question is, do his predictions have merit? Do they make sense in light of the evidence? And he is making testable predictions, by the way. He's making very specific conjectures that may very well be refuted when the times come. I mean, he actually put specific years on many of his predictions. Very bold thing to do. These are years when he plans to be alive, in fact. So, I mean, he's just not out there making just wild speculations. They are testable predictions, but do they have merit? And it really comes down to the idea of the exponential growth curve. If you agree with him that technology is going to grow exponentially and that every technology will grow exponentially, then it's going to be kind of hard to argue with him. You could argue a little bit with his specific timing, I think, but so let's talk about that, the idea of the exponential. All right, you saw it the first week that technology and science have grown exponentially in the past, and somebody brought up a very good point though in the forum, and that was that, well, what if we run out of resources? So, and this is kind of what we would call like a Malthusian view, named after Thomas Malthus, this famous economist from, I think it was the late 1800s, I'm not positive about that. But he basically predicted widespread famine and disease because of overpopulation, and that the population growth, because it was exponential, would outpace the growth of food production, which was linear. Very much related to what we're talking about here. Of course, Malthus was wrong. What happened is that the growth of agricultural production was not linear because of technological developments. There was the invention of chemical fertilizers, and there was the invention of hybridized crops, and now genetic engineering that has vastly increased agricultural production across the world. So increase in agricultural production was not, as he thought, just a matter of bringing more land into production and so forth. There were unforeseen technological paradigm shifts. And that's Kurzweil's basic argument. In fact, if you look in chapter 2, he breaks down the exponential curve, and he shows that it's not just a simple exponential curve. If you could zoom in on it, what you would see is that it consists of a bunch of little S shapes. So it's exponential growth, which levels off as the resources are used up, and then another exponential growth, which goes even higher this time and then levels off, and then another exponential growth. Now those little portions where it levels off, that's when the resources that are currently needed are being used up. But then what happens is there's another technological paradigm shift, which causes another period of exponential growth. And this has happened consistently in history. So you might argue and say, well, aren't those technological paradigm shifts, those discoveries, those innovations, aren't they really just chance events, totally dependent on all sorts of contingencies? And that may be true. But somehow, when you look at history, when you look at the history of science and technology, you see this consistent exponential growth that is consistently punching through barriers. And in fact, this is how biological evolution works as well. It's kind of a punctuated equilibrium. And that's something that Ray brings in as well in the second chapter. So again, if you're interested at all in this topic, I'd encourage you to read the whole book. You'll learn a lot, even if you don't like what he says, don't agree with it. He's really a master of technology in general, and knows a ton of stuff about about what's going on currently in technology. And that book's even a little bit out of date at this point. He has published some more recent books, not on that exact topic. So anyway, that's what you've got to wrestle with. You don't have to like what he says, but I think the argument is there. And especially if you look historically. Now, does that mean that things are going to continue like that in the future? No. And that's why this is not a cut and dry thing, right? But it can be exciting, especially if you look, maybe some of the things he says are scary, but some of them are pretty exciting, I think, particularly with regard to health and that sort of thing. And according to him, you guys are right in there, and you're going to be watching all this stuff take place, if he's right. Okay, I just wanted to sum up a little bit, just the whole course and what I kind of had hoped that you would get out of it, and some things that I've been thinking about. As we've been going through this course, I've been thinking about some things as well. One is, of course, when we talk about science, there's the whole question of what it is. And I think there's really no better way to learn what science is than to look at what we have done in this course, to look at it like we have in this course, to look at the history of scientists and people that we call scientists and what sorts of things they've done, what philosophers of science say about science, and the interaction between science and society. I think that you guys probably have a better feeling right now, if you've done all the readings and watched the videos and done all the assignments, you have a better feeling for what science is than many scientists, to be quite honest. So I think that if you have done all the readings and been thoughtful about it, and most of you have, I think, then you can't help but come away with this with a lot deeper understanding of science. Now, we couldn't cover everything. One thing in particular that I would have loved to cover, I would have liked to go into Michael Polanyi's book and bring in the central importance of the scientific community, the role of the scientific community in science, and that science really is a communal activity. You saw that a little bit in the Lavoisier play. You saw it somewhat in Thomas Kuhn's writings, but we really didn't do justice to that, and I'd love to do that. Maybe in the future I'll try to squeeze that in a little bit. Take-home messages. What am I hoping that you take home from this? First of all, exponential growth, obviously, something for us all to wrestle with, something for us to look forward to, be scared of. I don't know. That's up to you. Something to get excited about in terms of getting involved in science. The other thing is everything science? Can everything be treated scientifically? One of the interesting things is that as time goes on, science gets applied to more and more parts of life, doesn't it? And so being a scientist starts to mean more and more. For example, I'm working on my administrative certificate so I can be a school principal. I hope to approach that job as scientifically as possible, in a research-based sort of way. And I think that's a powerful approach, conjectures and refutations, right? Being open to being wrong, being open to change. I think that's what it's all about. Conjectures and refutations. Really, if there's one thing that you remember from this course, I think that's one of the things. I mean, that's probably the key thing, is that science is conjectures and refutations. Then paradigm shifts, another very important point. I'd almost say that was as important as conjectures and refutations. I love Thomas Kuhn. I would encourage you to read that whole book. It's really not very long if you've got the interest in it. So paradigm shifts, changes in worldview. It happens again and again and again over history. Scientific revolutions are not just cumulative. They're not just adding on to each other. They're completely changing the way we view the world every time. And that's pretty exciting too, because it tells you that there's no reason to think we have arrived. There's no reason to think it's over, that there's not another paradigm shift right around the corner, and that you might not play a role in bringing about that paradigm shift, right? The European miracle. It's not important that it's Europe. What is important is that there must have been factors involved. Let's approach this scientifically, right? There must have been factors involved in the development and acceleration of science and technology in Europe. What were those factors? Can we replicate them throughout the world today? Those are important things, right? The idea of openness, being openness to change and questioning dogma, questioning accepted ideas about the way that the world works. Those sorts of things are key here. Being free to pursue science and to pursue your ideas. All of those things are tremendously important, I think. Another thing I think that comes out of this is that almost a confusion between science and technology. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think that they are so intertwined with each other that it's very hard to separate the two. Like I said, I've been tending to think as we've gone through this course that science is almost a type of technology, almost like an intellectual technology, right? And so I don't think it's weird if you can't figure out the difference between science and technology, if you're getting confused about that. I think that's probably understandable, right? And there's probably nothing wrong with that. Lastly, I would like to talk about something that one of you brought up in your post, and that was a criticism of Ray Kurzweil that he didn't talk about the great responsibility that will come with these tremendous advances that he's talking about. And so I wanted to touch on that science, I think one of the things that this course should show you is the tremendous power of science, the growing power of science, and that as a scientist or a technologist, an engineer, whatever, you do have a large amount of power. And with that, it's true, does come tremendous responsibility. And those are going to be issues that you're going to have to wrestle with personally, that we're all going to have to wrestle with as a society. I like what Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, says. He says that responsibility is really responsibility. It's the ability to respond. And isn't that cool? Because science and technology are giving us a much greater ability to respond to problems in the world. And I think one of the things I like about Ray Kurzweil is his optimism, and that it gives you a very optimistic viewpoint of the future. Another book I've been reading recently is this one by Peter Diamandis called Abundance. Same kind of thing. The future is better than you think, right? So if you're interested in that perspective, take a look at that. It's been lots of fun. Your grades are up on Moodle. Okay. I did want to say that I'm going to give you each a chance to redo one of your assignments if you would like. Just please let me know if you're going to do that, so that I don't finalize anything before that. So you can redo one assignment and I will totally regrade it. All right. I think at this point that most of you got credit for this course, and most of you did quite well. If you would like to do an assignment though over again, please let me know. My goal here is that you actually succeed in learning what you wanted to, and what I was hoping that you would through this course. It's been great fun teaching you, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. Please take a minute to fill out the survey. If you look at the news forum, look up in the upper right of the screen on Moodle, and you'll see the news item. I posted a little survey on SurveyMonkey. I really want to know what you think. I want to know about how I can improve this course in the future. All right, enjoy the last few bits of your summer, and have a great school year.